All right, everybody, welcome. We have a super special guest today. I'm really excited for this one. He's a keynote speaker, a podcaster, does a podcast on this kind of stuff, employer branding. That's what you're here for. He wrote the book about it. He's the self-proclaimed nerd on the subject. What's up, James? How you doing?
Now, I am not self-proclaimed nerd. Google told me I am. Look, if you Google the phrase employer brand nerd without quotes, I'm like 4 to 7 of the first page results. But if you put quotes around it, I own the first 5 pages. So it's not me. Blame Google. I'm not claiming anything.
Okay, I would never call you a nerd. I would never do that. But
Oh, I do it to myself all the
okay.
time. I mean, let's be fair. Nerds are the most fun. Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm super pumped to talk about this stuff.
Of course, man. I'm really hyped. I was looking around. I found you, and I was like, "This is the dude people need to hear from for sure on this subject." So let's back it up and rewind. So you're the man when it comes to employer branding now. But how'd you get here? Like, what got you interested in all this stuff, and where'd you start?
Yeah, like all good employer branders, I came by this honestly, and then I backed into it by accident. Nobody goes to school for this. Nobody plans to be an employer brand. In fact, I don't think anybody in college actually has any clue what the term means. I'm explaining it myself on a regular basis to recruiting professionals, so it still hasn't become mainstream. But that said, I'm a digital marketer from way back. I think about things from a marketing standpoint. I made web pages back when you had to do it by hand and use tools like Dreamweaver, which I don't even know if Dreamweaver exists anymore. It's been forever. You kind of build these things and then you say, hey, somebody says, hey, we need to make this page. And I say, great, what's it for? Why do you need it? And asking those questions put me in that sense of, okay, this is how a marketer thinks. And then as I kind of moved through all sorts of different marketing spaces, I've done event marketing and pharmaceutical marketing and B2B marketing and B2C marketing and software marketing and education marketing and nonprofit marketing. You realize it's all the same. It's all the same. Figure out what your customers care about. Figure out what you can say that's going to make them say, oh, that's interesting, and put it in front of them. Rinse, lather, repeat, right? It's just a real simple process. Now, there's lots of room for be creative inside that to really kind of say, what's a clever way to do it, or how do you do it with less budget, or all sorts of fun stuff like that. But in the end, structurally, it's the same. Get more eyeballs. Get more people excited about whatever the hell it is you're selling. Yay! And I tripped into recruitment marketing employer brand because someone said, well, you change jobs a lot and you think like a marketer. I have the job for you. And I went, okay, I had no idea this was even a thing. And so I started to get into it. I was working in a big agency who just specialized in recruitment marketing. And I realized that pushing ads out and pushing websites out, again, what's it for? What are you trying to serve? What are you trying to solve for? I was talking to a big box company, I won't name names, and they said, well, gosh, what can we do? Maybe we should make the button to apply bigger. And I said, look, your beep, brand name, if you remove the button, people would still find it and apply. And frankly, I think if you remove the button, the people who would find and apply are exactly who you should be talking to anyway. Making the button bigger is wrong because ultimately, more isn't better. And this is the only kind of marketing in which that is not true, which blows my mind. It's why I love employer brand, because it's the only place where more leads, more eyeballs, more conversions, more space, more share of mindset, it doesn't actually help. In fact, in a lot of ways, it hurts you. Just think about, if recruiting is that proverbial needle in a haystack, you're not going to get more needles just because you have a bigger haystack. And unfortunately, so much of marketing is about more hay, more hay. And recruitment marketing is about, well, what do we do to get more needles? And that to me was where the fun is, because whereas every other kind of marketing is kind of structured and you got your 5 Ps and you have this, you do it the same way. Employer brand is still being figured out because we're not in a quantity model, we're in a quality model. And because of that, you're rewriting all the rules and the rules haven't been established yet. So I love the fact that I get to be in an industry that's rewriting its own rules as we speak, to really kind of learn from what the Europeans did for 30 years, to take our own spin on it, to really look at how do people use the internet, how do people look for jobs, what's the psychology, what's the motivations behind that. All that stuff gets dumped into one little knot and you figure out, how do I sell the idea of this company to someone so that they say one of two things. Oh, hell yeah. or no. And either answer is right. Either answer is a win. I want people to self-select out and say, you know what, I'm never going to be happy here. Great. I don't want to waste my time interviewing you anyway. Thank you so much and have a great time wherever you want to go. But I want people who go, oh, I'm interested, to say, I have to be a part of this. I get what they're about. I want to be a part of this bigger journey, and that's what I want to make happen. So that's really why I love Employer Brand.
Yeah, that's so interesting that you say that. I think the idea of, less of a big haystack and, getting people that already will resonate, it's like you said, it's not about quantity, it's about quality, and good is good. You know what I mean? It's not more is good is good.
We've been so accustomed to thinking that you need more applicants. And the truth is, you don't. The platonic ideal of number of applicants is 1. Well, in reality, it's 2, because 1 you say yes to, and 1 you say, thanks for playing, and your hiring manager feels like they made a choice. But anything beyond that, it's literally wasted effort and time. So if you can remove all that, focus on, I just want to talk to one great person and say yes, that's what you're trying to do. How do you make that happen? By getting them to say yes to you, by getting them to understand what's the job, what's the company, what's the mission, why are we trying to do it, what's the culture, what's the microculture, what's the tasks every day, what all that stuff needs to be jam-packed into a very small package, and we call it an employer brand.
It makes sense, and I think a lot of people would agree that that's a really smart approach to take, but I wonder, people can be lazy, and people can hear that and say, well, that sounds like a lot of work. And,
it is.
What we're doing right now, it might be a lot of work also, but we're getting applicants and we're eventually finding that person that either works out or doesn't. So what do you say in those situations?
That's the wrong approach. Yeah, that's the wrong approach. That's the thing of saying, well, look, it takes a lot of work to write a good, compelling, interesting job description or job posting, whatever you want to call it. It takes 2 hours to write a good one. And even if you're not a great writer, maybe it takes you 3 hours to think, what is this person going to do all day? What's the kind of person who's going to fit in real well, who's going to be a value add, who's going to be a culture add? What are the experiences I want them to have had in the past that makes them valuable to us? Yeah, it's going to take you 2 hours. Alternatively, if you take this thing out of the book or steal something off the internet or steal something off somebody else's job site, and let's be fair, you're doing that, that's going to be 10 minutes of time, but now you have to wade through 200 applications, none of whom are right. So where do you want to waste your time? Do you want to waste your time writing something compelling that maybe you can reuse over and over again? Mm-hmm. Or do you want to waste your time on the back end saying, well, everyone in the known universe has applied to this company. Now I got to figure out who's interesting to talk to. It seems like a lot of time, but it actually saves you so much time on the back end. Be compelling, be understanding, understand what you're all about, understanding what you're offering, and spell it out in a way that people go, I get it. That's not that hard. Is it more than what you're doing now? Probably. But is it really that hard? No. And it saves so much on the other side.
At one point, I kind of thought that employees are the one competing to work at these places, these employment places, these companies. And now I've had the revelation that it's like, no, it's employers that are the ones competing, at least for the good talent, at least for the people who are worth competing for. And, I think people aren't doing enough. I don't think they're really owning the fact that we are actually competing. This is a competition to get those people. And, the stuff you're talking about right now is if that's the bare minimum, you know what I mean? What do you think they're doing to attract these people?
These companies still think it's 1987. You're like, no, the world has changed and people understand things. I think you can even take it a step further and understand that talent really ultimately comes in 2 flavors. They come in people who do a job and people who are artists. Now, let me explain, because that sounds really highfalutin and really kind of, and whatever. That's not what it's about. Ultimately, the person who folds the sweater at the Gap is almost certainly, they're taking a job. The person who flips a burger at a major fast food restaurant, they're just doing the job. There's no artistry involved. There's no love involved. They're not passionate about burgers. They're paying a paycheck, and good for them. Nothing wrong with that. But Those people are commodities. They're interchangeable cogs in a very, very big machine. Having worked at McDonald's a million years ago, I know that these places make it so that anybody with 6 minutes training can stand in front of that grill, flip things at exactly the right time, make sure that the burgers coming out are exactly the right way, exactly the same size, exactly the right amount of ketchup and mustard every single time. It's a machine built for that. So it doesn't matter who's standing in front of that grill, the burgers come out the same way. Now, if you said the same thing about your software coding, or if you said the same thing about, say, your nurse, or you said the same thing about your electrician or plumber or real estate agent, well then I hope you you have better insurance than that, because you want someone who wants to be a nurse, who is passionate about nursing, for whom this isn't just a job, this is a calling, that they bring love. They bring, and again, that sounds really fuzzy bunny, and I get that, but they bring an artistry to it. An artistry in that sense that says they do that which isn't strictly necessary, right? The nurse who checks in on you one extra time to make sure you have what you need. The electrician who makes sure to really double wrap that by, where he's fusing wires, or not fusing, but he's stitching wires together. He puts another level of tape on it. The person who does just a little bit more because they know this is a better way to do it. Now, for cogs, you're right. It is 1987 forever. Those people you interchange them. Whoever wants this job, this is what we pay. Boom, you're done. But for the rest of the world, and that's most of us, it is like the competition is the other way around. You are desperate to hire these people. You got to remember that, every company says people are a most important asset. And you're like, no, that's a lie. That's a bunch of bull. That's a bunch of junk you throw around, because the truth is people are your business. Without any people, there is no business. End of sentence, end of paragraph, close the book, you're done. This is what it's all about. Now, if you hire good people, you will have a better company. And so if you're trying to compete, you are trying to compete for that which grows your company. And that means they need to understand why you exist. They need to understand what they're going to do all day. They need to understand all the stuff we talked about at the beginning. What is this about? And yeah, you are competing to have them show up, because two things happened in the last 12 years, 15 years that I think you're aware of. One is called the internet. It's lovely. That means I can learn all about you. And honestly, I can work anywhere. It's not like, and I'm in Chicago, so that doesn't mean I have to work for Chicago companies. I work for companies, I've worked for Swedish companies, right? I can work anywhere, which means the competition isn't about who wants to work for me today, right around me, it's the world. So if you've got someone great in your office right now who you're like, oh, if I ever lost her, I'd be up a creek. Guess what? She can work at Google and Amazon and Facebook and Twitter and literally the millions and millions of other companies around the world who would be happy to have her. Congratulations. Are you scared yet? You should be. That's why it's about the mission. That's why it's about, what do we offer? Why are we doing this together? Yes, the salary that you pay her and the salary that other companies are going to pay her may be pretty close, right? By opening this stuff up, we all know what a nurse makes. We all know what a software engineer makes. It's a pretty narrow bar. We all kind of get it. It's a band, right? We get it. But, if you know that you're being a nurse for the kind of, if you're a nurse for babies versus a nurse for old people, and you care about one really kind of gets your heart aflutter and kind of gets you going more than the other, you're going to bring more to the game. You're more valuable. The other thing that happened, it's called the pandemic. Perhaps you've heard about it. And that means we're all at home. We're all working from home for the most part, which means I can literally work anywhere. So it's just reinforcing this idea that you can compete to hire anybody in the known universe, and everybody in the known universe can go in any other company in the world. So the competition got really, really complicated and really, really fierce in the last couple of years. And COVID really just turned the volume up to 11 on that. But it's really about where's the place that's going to feel like home? Where's the place you're going to belong? And if you just treat your people like cogs, they can go to a place where they might feel like they belong a little more, and then you're done.
I mean, you make such a good point, and I think, something that I think about a lot too is like, imagine taking the team from NASA or taking a team of any super talented individuals who are just passionate and focused on solving problems. You don't think that team can do anything, So it's like people are looking for like, oh, we need this person to check this box and this box and this box and this box. But it's like, that doesn't matter really. It's more about like getting this group of people together that's, running on the same wavelength and all like excited about whatever that mission is. And it's like, I think if companies would focus on building teams and saying like, look, if we focus on putting a good team together, we can pivot, we can change a product, we can change a service, we can do whatever we need to do because as we're seeing right
Yep.
now, like you just brought up, COVID changed the world, you know. Next year something else will change the world. Like the world keeps changing. So
It
businesses
does.
need to keep changing. So you need a team that can keep changing and keep adapting and, learning, and I think
Yeah.
that, that to me is what's the most interesting part about this employer branding thing and culture thing is like I just think it's a mindset shift that needs to
Certainly.
occur that's like team building, team building. Who
Yeah.
cares what our product
Well,
is? Like if we build a team, we'll figure the rest out.
I can actually take it a step further. It turns out the jobs aren't or the jobs are kind of immaterial too. So let's say you're hiring a salesperson. What's their job? Is their job to pick up the phone 47 times a day and dial customers? Is their job to enter their data in Salesforce to make X number of records appear in Salesforce? Is their job to make customers knock on their door? Is their job to get customers to understand what the product's all about or the service is all about? Well, all of them and none of them, right? The goal of a salesperson is to bring money in. Yeah, we might expect the salesperson to pick up a phone. They might make a lot of emails. They might use Salesforce or Pardot or whatever, any kind of email marketing tool or CRM, or hey, they might be on social media. They might be generating audiences that way. When you hire a salesperson, are you hiring the person who picks up the phone, or are you hiring the person who figures out the best way to make the money now is X? And I think it's the latter. I think you don't hire a person to pick up the phone or dump data into Salesforce. You hire someone to get an outcome to happen. The trick is there are 17,000 paths from point A to point B. Just because you know two of them doesn't mean those are the only ones. If you're a salesperson, write an ebook about the product. Give the ebook away. Start a podcast. Start a video cast. There's all sorts of ways to generate interest in a thing. Does that mean they're less of a salesperson, the person who picks up the phone and it's a boiler room? No, they're doing it differently. And when you realize that you're gonna have to start to define your job not in the tasks that you're accomplishing, but the outcomes you're driving, suddenly, yeah, why can't you hire the entire team from NASA and say, can you figure out how to sell this product better? Guess what? They can. And guess what? They're going to be damn good at it. They're going to be amazing at it. They're going to come up with ideas that we never thought of. To say that we just need someone who picks up the phone or shows up to webinars and just does the thing because that's what we think we're supposed to do, that's going away. That's true of many, many industries and many, many jobs. Look at software. Look at, there's so many different ways to code an application. It's not just languages, it's approaches. Frankly, there are layers and layers of abstraction of, I want to hire somebody who runs the code or runs the program, who makes the code, who makes my product. What? That's so weird. And yet that's your software developer's life every single day. There's so many different ways to accomplish the outcome. You don't say, I need someone who only can code in C++. You go, I need someone who can develop a user-centered framework to build an e-commerce site that does X. Great. Let them get out of their way and let them do that. So when you realize that it's not about the tasks, well, hold on. That just changed what a resume is. That just changed what a job posting is. That just changed everything in Workday, everything in your HRI suite. Everything went, whoa, wait a second. And then what happens ultimately is you've got an infinitely more agile framework of talent. You can say, okay, today we need to build, I don't know, a booth that sits an event, but it's a virtual event, so it's not a real booth, so we need software coders and designers, but we need a copywriter, and we need someone to say, what the hell else are we going to say on this thing that's going to make people attend, that's going to make people show up, what are they going to see when they get in there, the user experience, the interaction design, all these things, and you can say, look, I'm pulling 5 people off their projects for the next 3 days, and we're going to focus on this project, get it done, push it out the door, and they get to go back. That is the now. That is how we live. And if you put that in a Gap, or you put that in a McDonald's, or you put that in anything where you have a bunch of cogs, you can't, because the person was trained to fold the sweaters. And that's all. They're not there to think of, what color blue should I do? Should I sort them by color? Should I sort them by size? Should I put my own outfit together for it? That's artistry. But you didn't hire for artistry. You hired for do the skill. And that's how things are really changing. When everybody can suddenly bring to bear their experience and their skills in brand new ways, because it's not about the skill, it's about the outcome. It's like it's the big Etch-a-Sketch moment. We're just shaking it upside down. We're going to say the world is going to be completely different because the world is nothing but agile teams.
Yeah, I imagine conversations like this must kind of stir up some anxiety in
Oh yeah.
high level people within companies because, like, at the same time we're having this conversation, you know, these folks are thinking about like how do we systematize things more? How do we automate
Mm-hmm.
certain parts of the business more to be more efficient?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's an obvious tension between those two things. And I wonder, with your experience talking to different businesses, how they respond to conversations like this and ways that they can balance that tension to implement something like this in a way that doesn't say throw away your systems, throw away all of that stuff completely.
Yeah, it's so hard because we, despite the fact that it's 2021, all of our systems are designed around the Industrial Revolution started last week kind of mentality, right? You do this job. If you do it for 3 years, you get promoted into the director of that job or the manager of that job, and then you do that for 7 years, and then you get everything's structured, and it's a system of control and a system of management and a system of process that allows someone at the very top, the smart one called the owner or the CEO or the president, to say, I am going to be the puppet master pulling the strings, and I will decide what's going on. Well, guess what? All the brains are farther down the totem pole, right? Because think of any organization of any size. Think of Tesla. Yeah, Elon Musk is a super genius at a Bond level, Bond villain level geniusness, but do you think he actually knows how to solder the pieces together? No. There's so many more brains in the rest of that company than it's Elon. Same for Jeff, even though Jeff's on his way out over at Amazon. Jeff and I are, of course, very good friends because I can say Jeff, and everybody knows what I'm talking about. That's the problem, is the brains have shifted from top to middle and to some extent a little bit to the bottom. The trick is, at the bottom, anything that is systematizable has become software. Or in Amazon's case, an actual robot, right? Very few people actually work, relatively speaking, in a warehouse in Amazon. Compare that to what was 20 years ago. Their job is to say anything that you can systematize gets rid of jobs. Now, on a macro level, that's terrifying. That means millions and millions of people out of work who don't know what to do and how to kind of make that work. And I have no answers to that. However, you have to embrace it and say, look, if it's, and I used to manage people and they say, why is this job so hard? And I would say, if the job wasn't hard, I wouldn't need to hire you to do it. So all the easy problems have been solved. So that means all the only problems that are left are the really messy, ugly, sloppy, complicated, hard ones. That's what we're paid for. How does a manager kind of figure out? Well, first off is to let go a little bit, to understand that the trust and the control isn't at the very, very top. It has to be scattered throughout the entire organization. Managers truly must be able to manage. There used to be a commercial a couple years ago. It was like a kid who said, when I grow up, I'm going to rise to middle management. It was a joke, right? It was like no kid thinks about rising to middle management because middle management sucks. You're getting squeezed from both ends. Well, middle management drives every company I've ever seen. Good middle managers is the difference between a company that has a good idea and fails and a company that has a mediocre idea that succeeds because they know how to execute, because they know how to pivot and adjust. Letting your managers and your management take control and make decisions and speak upwards to say, actually, we want to drive the company in this direction. That's the future of the company. That's the future of all business, because just from a sheer statistical process where the brains are, you let the smartest people drive the car. Well, guess what? They're all in the middle now. How you get from where we are to where they are without, blowing the company up and starting fresh, I don't know. And you see companies trying to figure out how to kind of, what's the joke? How do you jump the chasm in 2 leaps? Well, you kind of can't. You kind of have to go all in and hope for the best. And yeah, there are companies who are trying to do that. Look at Disney. Disney, who made all their money by putting little kids in little hats and little ears and little kids and getting them to run through a park and having their parents just spew money out for churros or sodas and rides. Well, now all their money comes from Marvel and Disney or Disney Plus and digital. The shift they're going to have to make as quick as they have to make is going to be a great example of how other companies are going to have to say, what do we want this company to be? Because again, etch a sketch, shake, shake. What do we want it to go? Where do we want it to be? And how can we quickly make it there? Because ultimately, the speed is what's going to win. The faster you can jump over to this new world, the better off you're going to be. Because otherwise, There's the Purples and the Caspers and the Harrys and the every little disrupting company says, I got a better way to do that. I can leapfrog to that spot because I don't have the overhead and I don't have the historical expectation of this is the way we've always done it, which is what kills companies. They are going to jump there first and you're toast. So the answer is you have to figure out how to make that bigger leap and take farther leaps. And that's terrifying. And to that, I have no answer. It's just guts.
I think a lot of people who might be listening to this conversation don't need to be sold on the idea of employer branding. However, them being passionate about it within their company and injecting it into their company doesn't mean it's going to happen. They need to get buy-in from people above them. They need a plan to implement. And I know you work with those kinds of people in those situations all the time. So what do you do in that situation where, you want to do it and you just have to get the company to take that leap and trust the process?
There is a maturity model for employer brand, and it starts off with, I don't know how to spell employer brand. And it goes on to, there's a one brand strategy. It's consumer, it's investor, it's employers, it's employees, it's all that stuff is one brand. And we just look at it in different facets. The journey from one to the other is like a Tolkien epic of, it's multiple books. It is multiple, it is the Winds of Winter level of series of books here. I'm going to totally nerd out on you.
Nice.
You can't,
nice.
you can't,
I was with you on
you can't
that
just, thank you. You can't make that jump. You have to kind of say, you have to take it step by step. And the answer is, if you're at that, we don't have an employer brand. The answer is simple. Do one thing. Pilot anything. Anything is the right answer. Glassdoor, that's the right answer. Job postings, that's the right answer. Career site, that's the right answer. Want to make a video? That's the right answer. Whatever it is, do one thing. Then what you do is you frame it as this is a pilot for investing in this thing called employer brand. Doing a video, any idiot can do a video. I got a phone, you got a phone, everybody. And I do, you just take a video, everybody makes the video, right? It's easy. If you call it employer brand activation, oh, interesting. That's interesting. Okay, now let's talk about what is the messaging? What is the narrative? And suddenly it becomes this different thing. So framing is helpful. Do one thing, prove that this idea makes sense. Once you have the pilot, then you expand. You figure out what are the first three things we could be doing. And honestly, that's how businesses make decisions. They don't suddenly say, oh, I read Harvard Business Review. They said employer brand is a thing. We're going to go do that. No, that sounds expensive. If they did that every time Harvard Business said to do something, they go bankrupt. There's no way. So what they do is they need to pilot something. They want to see that it works. Once they see that it works, then they say, okay, you've got my interest. You've got my attention. What are the next three steps? And how much does it cost? And how do you make it happen? That's really how it works. If you're in that stage, it's all about formalization. This is how we're embedding employer brand to every little step of the candidate journey, how we embed it in the employee experience, how we get leadership to embrace it and be part of it, not just say, yeah, we like it, but to say, well, then you're going to be in the video where you talk about why this company is an interesting company. Oh, you mean you want my involvement? Oh, suddenly that's called buy-in, right? They're really kind of committing and doing the thing. Once you get that, then it's expanding. Okay, let's get a staff of 2. Let's get a staff of 3. Let's invest. Yeah, you want to get an agency to build your EVP? Do it. You want to do it on your own? Do it. There's plenty of ways to do it. There's no right answer, I assure you. Again, I wrote a book on it. I've worked in those agencies. I've sold those services. The reason you buy those services is because it's safer because you had an expert do it for you. The trick is the expert's coming from the outside and they may or may not have the perspective on who you are and what you're about that you have. So it is kind of a balancing act. You want to kind of say, I want it to be supported and valued. So you have to decide, is you're the company that says, we trust our people to build from in-house, or do you need to build from the outside? Either way is right. Once you build that, then you expand it. Once you do that, you just figure out what are all the tactics. And honestly, as you go through that, you're standing in a different part of the journey. Just pull your head up and look around and you go, oh, I know what to do next. So it's so weird because it's not rocket science. If I kind of figured it out, and I am pretty smart, but I'm no genius, if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. It's just about committing to this idea of how do I position myself to be crystal clear as to what I offer, what I'm all about, how do I communicate that out to the world in a clear way so that people go hell yeah or hell no, because both their answers are right. And that by itself, that mindset shift is a huge shift. But once you do it, follow the path forward. Everybody else knows how to do this. You just have to kind of go step by step by step by step. Follow your own feet in the right direction.
I love the idea of just kind of like calling yourself the employee brander and, just
There's no
asking for
certification.
forgiveness later,
Yeah. Yeah, God doesn't come down and say, bing, you're an employer brander. We all kind of self-label ourselves. And I'm not just talking about me. Literally everybody who's good at this has self-labeled. So why can't you?
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So you've got somebody here listening maybe is like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go take some action, start this in my office and all that kind of stuff. What are the landmines? What are the kind of mistakes you see people make right out of the gate that, they should try to avoid?
There are two schools of mistakes, and they come from where you are. So if you are in marketing and you say employer brand's really interesting, the schools of mistakes you're going to mistake are all about recruiting. You don't understand how recruiters think. You don't understand what the recruiting model process looks like. For example, you want to bring in ideas and say, okay, recruiters, here's your checklist of everything I want you to do. And recruiters will look at you like you've got 17 heads in or for Mars. They will not embrace you at all. You've introduced change without any buy-in whatsoever. Thank you so much for being a part of this meeting. We're going to go get some donuts over here and talk about you. That's the biggest problem, getting recruiter buy-in. It turns out the other problem is the same, but in the other direction. If you're a recruiter and you say, I want to get into employer branding, you've got to learn marketing, which, by the way, is a whole other brain. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not hard. It's just recruiters are people. They're used to dealing with people one-on-one. They're used to listening and engaging and thinking, who is this person? What is their motivation? That's great. And it's a skill that I don't have as well as so many recruiters do. I have a systematic, strategic brain. It says, okay, times 1,000, what does that look like? How do I maneuver things? How do I position things to maximize that effort? It's a whole different brain. And if you try to do that, and you try to do it right, that means engaging with other teams outside of recruiting, and one of which is marketing. And marketing will look at you like you have 17 heads and you're from Mars because you don't know anything about marketing, you silly recruiter person. Go step away. We're going to go over here and eat donuts and talk about you. Your goal here is to create a kind of dual citizenship, to say I am of both recruiting world and of the marketing world in equal measures for the most part. That's how you avoid the initial landmines. Because without buy-in, this is just you puffing up your resume for no good reason. You need buy-in from everyone in every step. Here's the other thing I would say. No one goes into employer brand, and this should scare everybody away from this. No one goes into employer brand who isn't absolutely out of their mind. No one sane says, that's the job for me. No one says, you know what, I want a job in which I'm accountable for the employer brand, which is impacted by what the CEO does and what the product does and the customer service does and what the recruiters do and what the news says and what the stock price says and so I'm responsible for all that, but I have no authority. Who takes that job? Crazy people take that job. Only crazy people say, I want all the responsibility and none of the authority. If that hasn't scared you off, lean into it. Understand that means your employer brand is shaped by all those stakeholders and all those people, which means you need to make friends with all those people and get them to understand. It is an influence game. You have no authority, you have no power. Chances are you got no budget. You got no power to do anything, but you can go make friends. Your job is to influence others, and that's the whole job. And if you can embrace that, it's a lot of fun. It's terrifying, but it's a lot of fun, and maybe enjoy it. But that's really where the landmines are.
For sure. That makes a lot of sense. And I think, forming those relationships between departments seems like it could be super overwhelming in a lot of cases, because like you said, it's just like, wait a minute, no, my life is just fine over here. Like, what are you trying to do? I don't want to do more work, you know what I mean? But obviously you've seen the positive results of when people do figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one thing that,
yeah,
go ahead.
I just want to kind of add one little add-on to that. And I think the thing about employer branding is when someone says we should invest in employer brand, everybody in the executive team kind of quietly reaches back and covers their wallet because they know what's about to come out is about to be very expensive. And I'd like to kind of diffuse that notion a bit. You don't need a tech stack. You don't need a software program. You don't need to invest in 17 third-party channels. You don't need to do anything. I can build an employer brand with sidewalk chalk. If you tell me you need to only talk to a certain audience, I'm going to figure out where they meet. It's a conference, it's a meetup, it's a coffee shop, whatever. I'm going to go the night before and I'm going to write my brand and talk about why this brand is interesting. I'm going to convey a narrative on sidewalk chalk outside those buildings so that when they walk in, they go, what the heck is this? And I win. It cost me sidewalk chalk. You don't have to spend a stack of cash. You can, please do. Feel free. If you've got it, go nuts. Who am I to tell you not to do it? But just don't think that employer brand is a function of money, right? It's the same. It's like dating. You can have a lot of money or you can have a good personality. It's great if you have both, but if you only got one, use whatever you got. If you got no money, better have a good personality.
What about, and kind of getting close to wrapping up here, but I want to make sure we lay out, like, what should people expect? How can you define a successful venture into employer branding? Your
metric shifts as you take that journey. Early on, the metric is a function of what's the pilot project. If your pilot project was, we need to increase our Glassdoor score, what's your score? Did it go up? Did it go down? That's the win. If it's, we had to write better job postings, okay, ask the recruiters. Are you anecdotally getting better candidates? If yes, you win. So whatever that pilot project kind of defines its own metrics, right? Whatever it is, do that. As you go, the metrics get fuzzier, really to the point where if you're at a one brand strategy, you just have to embrace that this is working and this is helping, that that you are in fact supporting what consumer marketing is doing, and what consumer marketing is doing is supporting you, and that there is an ultimate overall broad value to it. But as you move through it, I'd say in the end, the kind of granular, how do you know it's working? It's all about talent. Are you getting the talent you want? Don't focus on speed. I think you can get in trouble when you focus on time to fill. It's really about, are you hiring better people? Are you upgrading your talent? If you can say that, then you're on the right path.
And obviously there are other factors outside of, like say you want to, start employer branding and you have a great plan and everyth's laid out and all this stuff, but the culture at your company sucks.
Or maybe the CEO of your company decides to scream at a cab driver of whom he technically employs, and it's captured on video and it goes viral. Whoops, that all impacts. And that's the trick. It all impacts. To have a plan is not very useful. It's about having a mindset and a direction. Because, and let's be fair, and Uber's a great example because ultimately, it's not like Uber had a problem hiring. It's not like Uber had crap talent and they went, oh no, how do we get people to work for us? They had plenty of coder bros who wanted to work there. It was a particular kind of coder. It was a particular kind of person who liked working there. It was a little bro-y from my point of view. But that's me, and that's a hell yeah versus a hell no kind of conversation, and I'm not going to be happy there, but somebody else will. So don't see a negative as a negative. Everything has both sides. It is a kind of a Zen job where you have to say, what is the positive inside that negative? If you turns out that your CEO is screaming at an Uber driver, okay, what's the upside of it? Look, we're intense. Turned into an intensity message. This is how much we care about getting this job done. This is the level to which we push to make things happen. Is it marketing and smarmy? I don't know, that's up to you. But if it's indicative of what the culture is, then it must be true and therefore it is good, right? No one says, join the army, it's a lot of fun. What they do is they say, join the army, and then they shoot over your heads for an hour and they go, oh my God, this is a terrifying job. That's a great employer brand. You know exactly what that job is and exactly what you're getting into. No one is lying to you. This idea that you always have to have white glove service and it always has to be positive is bull. Embrace the negative. That's true. That's authentic. It's who your company is. It's who your culture is. You have to use it.
Man, James, I feel like I could talk to you about this all day, and I wish we had more time to do it. But you got a book, you got a podcast, you put out a newsletter every week, right? I mean, you're putting tons of stuff out there. So for everyone who, just got a little taste right here, there's plenty of ways to follow James and all the stuff he's doing. So you want to tell people where to go? Where's the best way to get a hold of you, reach out, read your stuff,
Sure.
Whatever it is they want to do?
Yeah, the self-promoting link is, the book is called Talent Chooses You. It's on Amazon. I've priced it literally so I don't make a penny anymore. It's there for people. You can buy it for 99 cents digitally. Just get it. Just do it. There's no excuses. You can't say you don't know. The podcast is called The Talent Cast. The newsletter is where I'm spending a lot of my time right now. It's just called Employer Brand Headlines, or if you just go to employerbrand.news, sign up. It's free. It's every week. It's going to help you kind of level up your skill set. That's me.
And I can attest it's good. As soon as I linked up with you, I went back and read like the last few months worth of articles, newsletters, and I was like, oh my gosh, man, I can't wait to talk to this dude. So
There's so much
definitely
stuff out there.
subscribe
It's
to
so
that
much
for
fun.
sure. Cool. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, man. Let's just one last thing, one little actionable piece of advice for someone who's trying to get this going, trying to do it. Like, what can they do?
Honestly, the easiest way to do it might just be to say, look at your job posting and say, is this telling a story about my company, or did I steal this from somebody else and I'm telling somebody else's story? If you think you're telling your story, you are on the right track. Can you always do it better? Sure. But that's a great way to know that there is something there for you to use. Go ahead and do it. Just look at those job postings and make them better.
Boom. There you go. Straight from James. Try it out. All right, man. I really appreciated having you on. I'm excited to do it again. I feel like there's a lot more we can dive into, so we'll have to set this up
Anytime.
again sometime soon.
Anytime.
All right, man. Have a good one.
All right. Thanks, Dylan. Thanks, everybody.